Hi everybody, I'm Zach and I like movies, and I'm back again for another entry in my Letterboxd Criterion Challenge for 2024. And today's prompt is number 31, which was picking one of Michael Shannon's closet picks. And I picked one that I haven't seen in a long time. This hails to us from the great movie year of 1999, and it is Being John Malkovich. It is the feature film debut of both director Spike Jonze and screenwriter Charlie Kaufman. And even talking about these two, like individually, is pretty interesting because Spike Jonze, back in that time, he was mostly known for his works on music videos in the rise of MTV. Like, he did the Buddy Holly music video for Weezer, and he was part of that propaganda productions. It was just like a sort of this this production company that was helmed by really a who's who of talent that we would and talent and names that we would come to know, like not just Spike Jonze but also Zack Snyder, David Fincher, guys worked a lot in like commercials and music videos and really made a name for themselves in their style. Oh, Michael Bay as well too, and even like and Kaufman himself, he was also kind of he was working a lot in like sitcoms and writing for like other shows, and he really felt a sense of sort of had this sort of self-identity crisis. Like, I'm always writing for somebody else. I'm not writing for me. And if you're familiar with Kaufman, if you're either familiar with Kaufman's works or you've seen like him in interviews, you can kind of tell that he has a lot of anxiety about himself. You can tell he always comes off as a guy who's very, very self-critical, probably very anxious a lot of the time. But anyway, he started writing the script for this movie back in like '94, and eventually, like a draft or so, sort of snaked its way through names in the industry, and then it landed at the desk of Francis Ford Coppola, who sort of passed it along to Spike Jonze, who was family at the time because he was married to Sofia Coppola, and Spike loved the script. He really worked with it, and it's really a testament to just how healthy and just strong the indie movie scene was in the '90s. That a movie with this kind of premise and just this like real out there pitch had not only could have gotten made for millions of dollars, but also was a success. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it made back its budget and over. It got nominated for like 3 Oscars, I think. That one for writing and directing too, and yeah, I do think its reputation is deserved. But also, I'm a bit of an island on this movie because I kind of don't love it. I only really like it though. So if you aren't familiar with Being John Malkovich, what it is about a guy named Craig. He's a puppet. He's played by John Cusack. Love him. Not saying a bad word about John Cusack in this house. Craig, he's a puppeteer. He's out of work, and he gets a job at this office building on the 7th and a half floor of an office building. He's married to a mostly unrecognizable Cameron Diaz, who plays Lottie, and at work he not only sort of has this deep, obvious infatuation with Catherine Keener's Maxine there, who just is a total ice queen, is having none of his stuff, but also at the office building he finds a portal behind a filing cabinet, and that portal, when he crawls in far enough, like, door slams shut, and he gets sucked in further, and he is transported into the mind of John Malkovich, the actor John Malkovich. You know him from that Jewel Thief movie. And after about 15 minutes of being John Malkovich, he is spat out on the side of the Jersey Turnpike. And then things escalate from there. And Yeah, it is kind of yeah. I do love just how wild that premise is, and like the fact that not only the fact that this got made, but Malkovich was such a sport and he said yes to this. Yes, and it's fascinating and a lot of it, and like it almost immediately that premise like raises a lot of like really interesting philosophical questions. You know, like when Craig is in the Malkovich mind, is he Malkovich? Is Malkovich Malkovich? And the also by the way, the way that this is shot through like this like sort of like singular POV is really impressive. There, especially for '99, like there's a great shot where like we're just following Malkovich as he like gets his keys and he looks in the mirror and it's John in the mirror, no cameras everywhere. It's like, wow, how did they get that? But you also, but I think a lot of the and I think that premise and that psychology that it sort of digs into is where the real juice of this movie lies in. Not just because because you can see a lot of like how that change, and you can see how that changes people, the people who like go in. Like Craig, he almost immediately sort of gets this sense of age, this like of opportunism through it. Like he's clearly a guy who thinks very highly of the art he makes and feels like he deserves better, you know. And he's a real and he's a real pathetic loser too. Like not just the way he like carries himself, the way he's like his hair is all unkempt and hideous. It's just that real attitude, just like I am owed better than I have, but I don't really like show. But like it's like he doesn't have enough to show for it. But what's interesting is that he is really good at puppetry, and I think it's fascinating that this movie chooses puppetry as that very blunt symbolism, but also so just, you know, it's symbolism that really feeds into that idea of that sort of like psychological aspect. And I think it's those ideas that really is what really makes this movie not just stand out of the scene at the time, but also like really feel timeless. It's because a lot of this movie digs into like these things about self-perception, like when Lottie goes through it. When she has her Malkovich experience, she has this sort of like has this sort of a almost revelation of her gender identity, and she feels more connected with people with Maxine eventually through Malkovich, and Maxine herself, to keep on Lottie for a second, she's a character who also feels in a similar way to Craig, like there's sort of like a stagnation to it. Like yes, she does care for him and for her husband, and she cares for her animals, like her chimp and her iguana. They all need taking care of. But she also was like there's a sort of like a trap there. She's trapped. She feels trapped in her life, in her self-identity, in a way that feeds into later in the film, and that sense of trappedness, that sort of like the loneliness of consciousness is, you know, like you are only ever trapped as yourself. You can't live. You can't know what it is to be someone else and sort of even living vicariously through somebody else. You know, it's sort of the way that you can with the Malkovich portal. And and really the only character that doesn't have any of that sort of like self-image, that any image of like self-identity and self-perception, is Maxine. You know, she knows who she is, and she really really loves who she is, and who she is an ice cold bitch. She's a cutthroat lady. Like there's an early line where she like kind of humors him humors Craig to go to a bar, and he's like all like trying to be nice and nebbish. He's all like trying to be nice and nebbish and shy, like kind of aw shucks. and she sees right through him. He's easy to read. I mean, she's like, you just think I'm high. You just want to fuck my tits, don't you? And she manipulates him into just admitting like yes, you have fantastic tits. I want to fuck your tits. And she was like, not happening. And she knows she's manipulative, and she really gets off on being able to manipulate people. And she's like even attracted further to not just like the obvious, not just like obviously she like she and Craig like try to make money off the Malkovich portal. Like, hey, be whoever you want to be, $200 a pop. But it's the way. But she gets more invested in it because she's able to not just manipulate Malkovich, but manipulate two people through Malkovich, whether it's Craig and Malkovich or Lottie and Malkovich. And I think it is that sort of like acceptance. Is that sort of like self, like she is kind of like this effectively a femme fatale character, which is really interesting considering that she's like dressed almost exclusively in these this great white getup most of the time. And I think it is that self-perception that that is that self-confidence and that sort of assuredness that that attracts Craig and Lottie to Maxine. And Maxine, she's like has nothing for Craigie, but she feels kind of, and she feels like, as she says, I'm smitten with you, but only when you're a Malkovich. But she, if you know about behind the stubble, the prominent brow, and the male pattern baldness, I sensed your feminine longing. And but like everything with Maxine, like even if they do kind of see these ideas that she does have affection or she feels some things for Lottie, you always feel like she is just manipulating them. And there's like some kind of angle to it, and like it is kind of that and it's these three, this like weird triad of like not quite love triangle of the three of them sort of using a poor hapless John Malkovich to their own ends is kind of one of the reasons that I'm a little lukewarm on certain parts about this movie. Like I said, I only ever liked John Malkovich. I don't love being John Malkovich, and I think that's one of the main reasons is that the characters are kind of they're so all selfish and horrible characters, but in a way like, and that's not that that's a problem in and of itself. It's more like they're sort of like. They're like selfish in a way that's like not that feels a little too standoffish. I'm always on an emotional remove from them. Like I could totally like when Maxine is like when when Maxine is like being like really just cold-hearted to both Craig and Lottie. It feels like, wow, like what oftentimes I am just kind of like, man, what do you see in her? She's just so cruel. It feels more cruel than cool. It's not quite a belittle me further, mommy kind of thing. It's more like, you're really mean. I don't think I want to be around you kind of thing. But and also I think there is an interesting angle with like how the sort of suddenness in the experience of feeling the Malkovich portal and being in Malkovich's mind, and how that would absolutely be a shock to your senses, and change and really sort of shake up your sense of self-perception and sort of like see like the way you see the world would have changed coming out of that, even if it is for such a brief time. I think that does make sense in a psychological sense, but in a narrative sense, there is a suddenness to it that kind of irks me. When Craig he sort of starts a dark descent that feels abrupt, and also I feel like Lottie's gender identity crisis kind of feels somewhat to be desired. Like I feel like there could have been a little more there, and all there, or later in the film where Craig sort of takes control of Malkovich more and more, and more. Yeah, it makes sense that a puppeteer is able to take control in the mind of, is able to take control of Malkovich and sort of become Malkovich and his own Malkovich. But again, it asks that question: is that Malkovich, and is that like that is that Craig new Craig, or is that just is it always Craig, or is there some Malkovich? You know, where does Malkovich go when Craig takes control, kind of thing. But I feel like there is an abruptness that does again. I feel like there could have been a little bit more, but at that same time, there is such a there's a lot of pots cooking, you know, and you know, whether it's like, you know, the stuff with like Lottie, Craig, and Maxine, or the stuff over here with Lester. With Lester, and who we find out knows about the Malkovich portal himself, or this other stuff with Malkovich himself, which is also really a lot of fun. It's all, and none of it really feels out of character in a sense. It's just that some parts feel a touch undercooked, but there is a lot. But to its full credit, for a movie that is like a couple minutes shy of 2 hours, it feels mostly balanced. Even if I do have that sort of a emotional disconnect from most of the characters, I still can't help but be impressed by not just how well it moves, and how consistent it feels most of the time. It really just impresses me the way that it keeps so many of these ideas in the air, and never really feels like it's sacrificing one for the other. Even though some parts I feel like could have used more time to, like, you know, really stew in some of these ideas. But I'm not at all saying that this movie is bad. Far from it. This is an absolutely fantastically well made movie, and yeah, it is very impressive that this is a debut feature, and it really shines a lot in a lot of how sort of plain and sort of really drab a lot of these interiors are. I like how I feel like there's a lot of, like, you can gather. I feel like there's a lot you can gather from, like, how a lot of these characters are, especially Craig. Like, I always feel like, again, knowing Kaufman's work and how he is interpersonally, like when you see him in like interviews and interacting with other people, he does put a lot of his sort of self-loathing and his self-criticism in a lot of his into a lot of his work. And I think with Craig, there's a lot of like his like I feel bad that I think so highly of my work, and I'm like I want to try more, but I also feel like I have a lot of negative all of this little like this like bad-haired goober is all of my negative feelings that I have right now, and he did all of that in adaptation and then some. And that's kind of another reason. That's probably another reason why I'm a little so-so on elements of this movie, is because I feel like there's a lot what makes this movie, the elements that make this movie work, be it like some of the like visuals and like the mindscape stuff, or this like sort of like self-loathing this like drabness, and these like psychology of the loneliness and the self-hatred. All of this stuff is really fascinating, but I always feel like it was done better and done stronger in his other works. Like I always feel like this is a much more, maybe because I came into this movie relatively late in terms of Kaufman's filmography. But I find this to be his most straightforward movie. Even with a premise like that and some of the ways it goes about it, I don't find it that weird. Like, oh, Portal Malkovich, yeah, cool. I keep reading like reviews online, people saying like, oh, like they keep using like, oh, it's so weird, it's so psychedelic, and I'm like, I mean, it is, but it's not that weird. at least for me. But also Also, I have to say this. I honestly forgot how funny this movie was. Like, you like there's a lot of great lines, especially from like Maxine, where like Craig tells her like, I don't think I could I don't think I could go on living after an experience like that, and she just like gestures to an open window, or like he's like, I feel like he says so, and he says he says something to like he says something like, I really feel like we belong together, Maxine. She's like, oh. There's a, and yeah, there's some quotes in here that are really funny. Or like Lester has some like really funny, like when they say like, my spunk is to you, manna from heaven. and also there's just like fun oddities like here. Like there's a like a secretary lady who misunderstands everything and like seems to convince Lester that that he has a hearing problem or like a speech impediment. There's a great gag involving a monkey's flashback that absolutely was the hardest laugh for me. And also, like, again, I really love Malkovich here. He plays the like weird physicality and the goofiness when he's like being controlled, and he's like, he goes, he does these weird like kind of jerks when he's like, he's taken over by Craig or whatever, and he starts freaking out. He's getting paranoid, and he talks to his buddy Charlie Sheen for help. Even before like his like public meltdown, where he was all like, Tiger Blood winning. Like even that, like even the 1999, that's absolutely hilarious. It's yeah, it's a movie that's really funny when it can be, but also it's a really creative movie, and I also really love how specific and delicate this tone is, and it's sort of like, again, it's sort of like that was like really perfected in that sort of like we could call it sort of Kaufman-esque fashion, but it's a tone that's really hard to nail. It's sort of it's how the sadness and the tenderness and the humor and the inevitable existential fear of the story, they never once clash with each other, and they're never at the cost of each other, of the other. And I think it's great. Like that ending kind of really has all of that wrapped in once. It's sweet and it's kind of funny, but also it's really just, it's a bleak ending too. My God. And I think a lot of that is helped with the score, which is really nice. I actually thought was a little bit of a felt a little like John Bryan. He's done a lot of work with like Paul Thomas Anderson. He also did the score for Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. He's a great composer, but it's actually Carter Burwell who did the score for this, and he's mostly known for like doing work for the Coen brothers. There's especially a lot of their earlier work, and yeah, it's kind of that tone, that music score. Man, I'm really thinking about it. It's sort of like, it's almost like a lullaby for a child that is sad but doesn't really know what sadness is. Like, he doesn't quite understand it yet. He just has this very strong feelings that he can't quite express. And yeah, it's me. Yeah, I do really appreciate this movie, even if I don't. I'm not head over heels for it. I just find I do think it's good. I absolutely do recommend this. I think it's definitely one of the strongest movies of not just of the 90s, but also of 1999, stacked year as that was. And yeah, I just get more out of repeated viewings of like Adaptation, Synecdoche to New York. I'm thinking of ending things. I'm more impressed by, I'm more connected and drawn to Kaufman's other works than I am with being John Malkovich. But hey, if a movie like this is something I consider the weakest, quote unquote, that's a very, very impressive, it's a very impressive repertoire. Where has Spike Jonze been? Like, I've seen him do, like, I think the last thing I saw him, the last time I like saw him in anything was like in 2013, like both with her and in The Wolf of Wall Street. But yeah, like get him behind a camera again. He's we need him. We really need we really need weird imaginative stuff, especially now when we're really lacking in these in weird in more weirder movies, like some movies that are like really shoot for the stars in their premise. But I feel like, I am a little hopeful that maybe something like something the success of stuff like The Substance and other things like that can sort of like help push the needle. Like, yeah, bring that creativity back to the forefront, not just not just out of the margins again. I think it's coming, and I do look forward to like whatever Kaufman works on. I think. I know he read a book. I know he's written a book that I still need to read. But then again, I'm not really a book guy. I'm a movie guy, and I anticipate anything that either Kaufman or Jones works on. And for any problems I have with this movie, I'm very grateful that this did launch them into being more recognized names, and all the better for it. And I think that'll be it. That was being John Malkovich. That'll be my review. I am Zach. I like movies. I have a lot more movies to watch. I ain't got but the 2 movies left. I have 2 more of this challenge to do. Real big accomplishment for me. Yeah. After this year, I needed a win. And I think that'll be it for now. And I will see you all next time. And you take care of yourselves.